Imagine right now if every single client that came on board with you became a repeat client. Imagine if all of them became retainer clients and you were making 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100K every single month, and you didn't have to worry about where the next meal or the next job was coming from. You could avoid the feast or famine cycle that we spoke about in video 1. The way you do that is by delivering a 5-star service. Now, a 5-star service is what I used to think it was just bending over backwards, doing everything my client said, trying to be a people pleaser, trying to just make them happy and think that I was this, golden child. But it's not that at all. A 5-star service is a professional service. A 5-star service is a service that is devoid of emotionality. It's a service that has structure. It's a service that puts you as a creative in a perfect position to innovate and to bring your creativity to the table. A 5-star service is one that is based on trust. Now imagine this, if you go to a hotel and you're at a 5-star hotel, you're going to trust that the staff there are going to deliver a great result. You don't need to micromanage them. If you go to a hotel that's 2-star, for example, chances are your room's going to be dirty, things are going to smell. The person at the front counter is not going to smile at you. They're going to screw up your results. Things are going to go wrong, but you're going to expect it. But the difference between a 2-star service at a hotel and a 5-star service is the trust that you have in the quality of the service that is going to be delivered. As a creative, from the smallest jobs to the biggest jobs, your goal is to deliver a 5-star service. So that means being a great client manager, but that also means being a great creative. All right. And I've had so many jobs where I have completely bent over backwards for someone only for it to come back and bite me in the ass. I've had jobs where I'm going to deliver the best 5-star service in the world only for that client to screw me over in the end. The reason behind that was because I was just giving without any structure and without great communication. And when you are positioning yourself as a people pleaser, when you are just trying to please your clients as much as possible, most of the time you forget to communicate one of the most important things there is, your boundaries. When clients step over your boundaries and you let them because you want to please them, you end up resenting them and you end up over-promising and under-delivering. But when you actually give a client a structure and a very, very solid container, your client feels rooted and grounded in something solid and then can focus on the creative job at hand without worrying, oh my gosh, is this guy actually managing this project correctly? Miscommunication muddles the mission. Miscommunication muddles the mission. Now, what I mean by that is miscommunication is probably one of the biggest reasons most client relationships fall apart. Any single time I've had a client complain or it falls out into conflict is because I've not given them enough information or I haven't communicated well enough the structure of the job, when to expect something, what the process is. And the communication, the policy, the way you communicate with your client starts at the moment the sale is made. So if you are not executing on a great onboarding process and you're not giving people the structure they need right at the beginning, you're setting yourself up for failure. Now, I used to be in the camp of, just let them crack on with it. Don't be too demanding. But you have to take your client through a process to show them that you are professional and you've got your shit together. Otherwise, they're going to walk all over you and you're going to have your boundaries crossed and you're going to end up resenting them. And then it's going to fall into a miscommunication muddle. And the miscommunication will muddle the mission. So we actually have a process called the 8 C's of client happiness. And these 8 steps are completed by yourself or your team. When a new client comes on board, you're going to be in a good position. Now, obviously, this can also be done for current clients, but it will require a bit of retraining them because they are going to be indoctrinated into your current ways. And if you haven't trained them well, then they're going to have some resistance around this. But it's always good to root your service in the 8 C's of client happiness. So number 1 is competency. So from the point of sale, you need to demonstrate that you are a competent business person. As a creative, one of the biggest problems I faced was I was always this artist, this creative, and I just wanted to do creative work and show them how creative I was. The way you show competency is by once the sale is made and you send them the first email which outlines the onboarding process. So it's something very simple like this. Hey, thanks for signing up. We're super excited to have you on board. These are the next steps that we are going to be taking you through. And this is where you want to hyperlink and send them things like your communication policy, which is point 2, your contract, which is point 3, and then any sort of things like maybe a payment link that you need them to go through. And secondly, you don't want them to have to try and manage the project at the start. You don't want them to go, okay, what's next? What's next? What's next? Tell them you've got it sorted. Show them that you are competent. Second point is the communication policy. I used to be on call to clients all the time, 24/7, 7 days a week. I remember an agency client of mine saying, hey, Luke, you want to jump on a call at 9 p.m. at night? I had food halfway in my mouth and I just put it to the side, jumped on the call, and I trained them to take the piss out of me. So a communication policy that is communicated right at the start of the job is going to save you a lot of headaches, and it's going to make your client respect you because we got life to crack on with. We have a business to run. A communication policy sets out when can they talk to you. You're going to be looking at emails in the morning, in the afternoon. When do you do a weekly call with your client? Is it going to be on a Tuesday every single day? Is it going to be on a Thursday? Do you have a Monday off? Personally, for me, I like to have Mondays to create, to do things that I'm working on my business. I'm not doing any client work on a Monday. Tuesday is where I do all of my calls. So I'll book in all of my client calls on a Tuesday, generally in the afternoon. Wednesdays, I'm focused on client work. So I'm actually executing on jobs. And Thursdays, I have another day of calls for any new jobs that are coming through, or if I have to jump on a call with a client. And then Fridays again are for client or for focusing on deep work. So I outline my schedule in my communication policy, and I show clients that, look, I'm actually doing this for the benefit of you. The more I can focus on your job, the better it is for everyone. So once you've highlighted the communication policy, you need to put the contract in place. Now, everyone says, make sure you have a contract. And the amount of times I've ignored this advice and been bitten in the ass is a watertight contract that will protect you from any client disputes that come down later in the job. Now, I remember a client didn't pay me for an entire year, and I had to mentally write that off, but ended up just not paying me. I was completely out of pocket. I had no contract to fall back on. Always make sure you have these things in place. ChatGPT is a great place to get contracts written in actually a matter of seconds, where you just outline the key points you want the contract to say. ChatGPT will process it and put it together for you. So the next step, once you've gotten the communication policy and the contract done, dusted, it's signed, then you need to focus on the brief. So is the brief clear? Do you know exactly what you're working on? Has the client communicated the desire for the job as clearly as possible? Now, you can avoid a lot of stress in your life if you avoid a brief breakdown. A job is only as good as its brief. So make sure that the client gives you a clear brief, and having a briefing process in place is going to allow you to make sure that your brief is clear, the client knows what you're doing, and you, most importantly, you know what you need to execute on. We have our own brief template as well. And if you need access to that, reach out to me and I will get that sent over to you. Number 5 is the checkpoints. All right. So what we like to do here is give a client a timeline of when they can expect to see work. So when you forget to give clients an actual timeline of your job, this is when they break down on trust. A massive breakdown on trust is when you can't execute and deliver when you say you will deliver. If you miss a deadline, especially if it's the first deadline with a client, you're going to be wearing away at their trust. So always make sure you can execute on that first deadline. And if you can't, be open with your communication and tell them why. but set that out at the start of the job. Always send them a post-production schedule or date when they can expect to see first rounds of revisions. What you want to avoid is your client having to email you and say, hey, where's this job? Where's this work? That is a big no-no. Take all of the guesswork out of it and tell them exactly what checkpoints they can expect to see. Consistency. All right. Consistency is being a person who shows up and is true to their word. Always make sure you're going to do what you say. Never promise things and then forget about them. If someone says something on a job, on a call to you, if a client says something and you've written it down and you forget about it and they have to bring it up in the next call, always make sure that you can execute with consistently and you are always true to your word. And that is the hallmark of a great creative. Constructive feedback. Feedback is always a very touchy subject in the creative realm. As someone who is an artist at heart, I care about my work. I'm sensitive when people send me revisions and feedback if it is not constructive. You need to be able to discern between constructive feedback and just feedback for the sake of it. So if a client comes up to you and says, I don't like that color. Well, why don't you like that color? Yeah, I just don't like it. That's not constructive feedback. That is just a client not knowing how to speak or how to be a human. This is where you need to prompt your client to give you constructive feedback. So tell me why. Why is this not working for you? Why do you feel that way? And so when feedback looks more like this, hey, I don't really like that color. Can we please change it to something that feels more this way because the brand is more positioned to, I wanted to have something that looks a bit more like this. Or, I don't really like the video. I think it's not giving across the right message. Can we make the message more in line with this vision? Now, see, that is the difference between constructive feedback and just rubbish feedback. Let's just put it that way. Constructive feedback is helping you improve the job, which is something you as a creative needs to learn how to love. You need to learn how to welcome constructive feedback with open arms. But if the feedback is just rubbish and it is just, this is shit, I've even heard this before, that's rubbish, I don't like it, I hate it. And as a sensitive creative, that was hard for me to hear. And so the way you want to avoid that is by learning how to deal with feedback, learning how to take constructive feedback on board, and most importantly, learning how to remove emotion from the feedback process. If a bit of feedback comes through and it has hurt your feelings, which it has done many, many times for me, do not respond. Do not react. Do not send an email back. Do not jump on a phone call until the emotion inside of you has passed. That is something that has saved me many, many times because I will then be able to collect myself, deal with the emotions internally, and then go to them with a plan of action. And generally, that's the best way to resolve conflict and to have a great constructive feedback process. If feedback is flying through on WhatsApp, on email, on Telegram, on everything from a client, they're calling you. Generally, you want to try and avoid that at all costs. And the way you do that is by having a very clear feedback process. So we use a Notion template for this, and we train our client that all feedback needs to come through this channel. This is how it needs to be done. And you need to follow our process on this. All right. So you lead your client through the feedback process. You don't just let them email you, WhatsApp you, call you at any time of the day. Having a solid feedback process in place is going to avoid you getting into many different conflicts, because when people send you crappy feedback, when a client gets unhappy, if they don't have a process in place, generally they're going to step on your toes and over push your boundaries. And then finally, completion. So the final one is about how do you deliver your job? How are you completing the work that you're doing? Sometimes jobs can fizzle out, sometimes they can fall apart, but you need to take the mentality of always doing your best job until that final job is complete and it's done and dusted. Be someone who is a finisher of projects and not someone who just coasts through them at the whim of their client. All right. It's also more effective and efficient for your own business to finish jobs and get them completed as rapidly and to the best of your abilities as possible. So that is the 8 C's of client happiness. And if you can stick to those all the way to the end, you're going to have clients who absolutely love working with you, because when they work with you, they know they are in safe hands. So what we like to do with all of our agency clients is we have a project management portal set up in Notion that we give access to them with. This is where we have things like project details, deliverables, communication policies, contracts, and all of the other useful resources that we have included with our jobs. Now, this is where we also include things like questionnaires, briefing templates, post-production schedules, and we actually store it all on the project management portal that our clients can use. And this is again going to add to that feeling that they are being held and structured through the whole process of working with you. This is going to give your clients a great deal of control and to make them feel really good working with you. So if you want this project management portal, click the link below to download that. Now, the whole goal around this is that structure and creativity equal innovation. As an artist, if you don't have the business acumen, your artist is going to get destroyed. It's going to get hurt. And if you're a businessman, if you don't have the artist, you're going to have uninspiring, terrible, crappy work that no one wants to buy. So you want to introduce structure to your creativity to create innovation and to ensure clients are blown away by the work that you create for them. As most of you know, client fulfillment is a full-time job. This is where most creators forget that the job won't last forever and it will come to an end. And a well-oiled, consistent content marketing machine will ensure that you don't fall victim to the feast or famine cycle. Now, I know as creators, we wear so many different hats. We're marketers, we're sellers, we're content creators, we're designers, we're this, we're that. But by implementing very simple processes and having a North Star in your content is going to allow you to market your business. So in the next part of the series, we're going to be talking about content marketing for creative businesses. So you can go from being the best kept secret in the industry to being well-known, renowned, and being the person where people actually reach out to you to work with you. Drop me a message on LinkedIn and I would love to connect with you. Speak soon.